Starscream here, and I am the Lord and Master of the Geekcast Radio Network. Don't tell Megatron.
Hello and welcome to episode 250 of the Cinema Geeks. I am one of your Cinema Geeks, Optimus Solo, and joining me as usual is the Comic Concierge. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
I'm just gonna have to start putting a disclaimer every time I put a number next to an episode because I really have no idea what number episode we're on, and we're recording multiple things, and we have some kind of locked away for different releases and stuff like that. And I'm
Yeah.
always trying to put the pieces together, and then we'll do something random where we actually get to the movie theater and want to talk about something new. So then I'm like, well, that should be released now, but it's number wise going to be later. I don't know how all that works. So hopefully nobody pays attention to the episode numbers. And
Yeah, that's why all the new podcasts don't use numbers. You're right.
Yeah.
That was just when podcast was first a thing. Everyone just used the number. That was just the thing you did. But no one does that anymore. So
I guess we're just we should get with the times. I guess I don't know.
I don't know. By now, it's
Yeah. Why change a good thing, right? No. I hear we're real popular in Denmark. No, I have no idea. So today is one of those times where Dan and I both were able to get to a theater within the last few weeks and watch a new movie. Actually, you've been a few times recently, to see some films, but we had some crossover with one of the ones that we were able to see, and that was also, I believe, on both of our most anticipated lists at the beginning of the year, and it was your number 2 pick in your box office draft, if I'm remembering.
Yes, you're correct.
Correctly. Which was a good pick. It is definitely up there,
nicely. Dan. Yeah, what's one of the few that I got right. So
I think you were good with Michael, and you were good with the Odyssey so far, and you still got some bullets in the chamber, so to speak. So today we are talking about Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. But before we get into any of that, Dan, I don't think we've ever discussed our history, knowledge, liking or disliking or experience with Homer's ancient play, the Odyssey. Did you have to read this in school? Did you cover it at one point? Well, how old were you if you did?
We never read the entire thing. I think we read snippets of the Odyssey, the Iliad, Beowulf. We took, I think, pieces of them and dissected them, but never the entire thing. Did you have to read the entire thing or portions of it?
I don't believe we had to read the entire thing, but I could be misremembering. I know we had the same thing. We did the Odyssey, the Iliad. We did do Beowulf around the same time. I don't know if that was in this. I assume it was all in the same class. I don't know how that would have been split up into 2 different years. That seems like it would be weird. If you're doing ancient literature, you'd probably do all those together, right? Oh, how old were you? For me, I'm thinking this was probably I don't know, maybe 16-ish.
Yeah, I was probably around that age, middle, high school, 10th, 11th grade. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want to say it wasn't my freshman year, it wasn't my senior year, but somewhere in between.
Yeah. And I didn't remember much of it. I never read.
You haven't revisited it numerous times since you were 15?
I haven't, surprisingly enough. But so I never read the entire thing. I got interested in it somewhat because of when Troy came out, because that was right when we, what was that, 2004? So right after I graduated from high school. Not to date myself, of course. Not, we've been doing this a while. But after when that was coming out, I got interested in the Iliad, and at the same time Marvel published an adaptation of the Iliad. So I got into that aspect of it, but I never really read or got into the Odyssey portion of it.
What did you think of it? Do you remember enjoying it or being this is a slog in high school, or what was your take way back when?
I liked it. I definitely enjoyed it. That's partially why I got into it more. I actually saw Troy in theaters 3 times because I really dig that's when I had way more time on my hands than I do now, so that was helpful. And it was also not something I necessarily planned, but it was I went with friends and then family and then other friends, so back when you're younger and have multiple friend groups, that's not
Yeah.
something.
I
So
actually enjoyed Troy as well. Like,
yeah,
I remember watching that when it first came out, and I know a lot of people enjoyed kind of pooping on it or whatever. That's not a very educated phrase there as we're talking about the Odyssey and whatnot, but a lot of people were down on it, and like I always thought it was one of those ones where I was like, "Well, I guess it worked for me, like whatever." And but I feel like I don't know. I feel like some people have come around over the years a little bit more on it, but I did
yeah.
enjoy Troy.
It's also one of those things where like suddenly when something new comes out, like everyone likes
Yeah.
the other thing in retrospect more. Suddenly, it's like when She-Hulk came out or other things. Like suddenly everyone loves the 2008 Hulk film, and like I'm
Yeah.
like, where did this come from? Like that was like where did they? And I feel like that's kind of happened with Troy. But I was there in the beginning, like you. I obviously I saw it 3 times, partially because I did really love it at the time. I did revisit it recently after seeing the Odyssey, just because it's like I need to go back
Yeah.
to it. But yeah, though, like that type of sword and sandal adventure, if you want to call it
Mhm.
that, the Clash of the Titans and things like that. We don't get movies like this, not even
No.
just in scale, but like genre wise, very often anymore. So that was
Mhm.
partially because why I was excited for it. And then, of course, it's Christopher Nolan, as much as like sometimes he can. He has the film bros after him and like the weight of his name, but ultimately, like he's able to make event films in a way that like no one really did since Spielberg in a
I
way.
was
So
yeah. I was gonna ask you kind of going into that, not just your history with the Odyssey, but like being a Christopher Nolan film. I know that's what got it on our radar, right? Not just that it's like this classic story
yeah,
that we probably haven't revisited in decades, but like that it was also a Christopher Nolan film, which put it on our most anticipated list. We thought it might have some success with the box office because of that name connection. But like, where do you kind of sit, like, as far as a Christopher Nolan fan? How does he rank amongst like your? Is he one of your favorite directors, or kind of what's your history with Christopher Nolan overall?
I like don't I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite directors. Like I just saw Tenet for the first time a few weeks ago. I
Hmm.
just yeah, it came out during COVID. I missed it, and I never went back. But I generally enjoy his movies. I do like the Batman trilogy. Enjoyed Inception. My favorite is still probably Memento. I love Memento. That's a huge fan of. I'm a huge fan of that. Uh, I know people bring up Prestige a lot. I saw that once. I enjoyed it, but it's not one I think I've watched nearly enough. But I like his movies. I wouldn't say he's like my favorite director by far, but I do want more often than not if I'm going to see a movie he does to see it in theater.
Hmm.
Obviously with Tenet, I didn't do that partially because of COVID at the time. But I love
Right.
seeing Inception in theaters and things like that. So I'm kind of, I guess, a lukewarm fan. But how about yourself?
I'd say I would probably describe myself as a little more than lukewarm. I mean, he's done 13 films. I haven't seen two of them. I didn't realize he did a film before Memento, so that's my bad.
Oh,
But
following. Yeah,
yeah,
it's his first film, and you could tell it's one of those things where it's like it's impressed that this got made because it was at a time when it was hard to make films, but it's worth watching just for see a young filmmaker come alive in that way. But it's not.
gotcha.
I would say it's, of all of his films, it's probably I would rate the least last
Okay.
out of all of them.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, and I still haven't caught up with Tenet. It just came out when my it was the year my daughter was born, and COVID, and this, that, and the other, and I just
Yeah.
haven't gotten around to it, even though I like um, him, and I like John. Was it John David Robinson or Washington? I'm gonna get the name wrong.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see
Um,
what you think of that one because there's a lot of some people like think it's an underrated masterpiece,
okay,
whatever you want to call it, and some people are think it's a mess. So I'd be
gotcha. I
interested
would
to see what you
say
think.
it- Christopher Nolan's kind of interesting because there were movies when I was a kid that made me fall in love with films, right? Like
Yeah.
Star Wars and the Indiana Jones series and stuff like that, and Back to the Future. Like those films really kind of like I don't know if they just changed my way of like looking at films, but they were like opened up my eyes to like how cool films could be, and like really
Hmm.
at a young age made me fall in love with them. And but I think as I was getting older, there was older, I say, as I was a teenager, and in my high school, maybe early college years, there were certain films that kind of again, gave me a shift in like how I viewed movies. Like it was no longer just the shock and awe or the wonder that you get as a child when you see
Mhm.
stuff on the big screen that like wows you from that standpoint, but they're films that are like make you think of the world differently or make you think of life differently or just whatever, or just change like what you understand is possible in film. And I always view Memento as kind of one of those, like
Mhm.
early
Yeah.
on, and it was just like one of those that was like, wait a second, like what are we doing here?
Mhm.
And for a long time that was like one of my favorite films that I had ever seen, and I still would probably rank it real close to the top, if not at the top of my ranking of Nolan films. But I think what impresses me, even if some of them aren't as high as that one for me, out of the 11 that I've seen, I don't know if I've had a bad experience. You know what I mean? Like, the
Yeah.
batting average is good. Like, they might not all be grand slams, but there's not any strikeouts for me. Like, most of these
No.
are hits. Like, they
I
might be they might be like a bunt single occasionally or like an infield single or something like that, but, like, they've all been, like, different levels of
Yeah.
good in my mind.
The only one that comes to mind that is borderline, and, like, it's been I don't think I've seen it since it's come
You're gonna
out.
say Insomnia, right?
Yeah.
That's
That's
what I figured.
yeah. I didn't love it, but also, like, that was, I think, him still finding himself, and I wondered
Yeah,
too, like, going back to it if I would like I said, it's been, 15 years since I watched it,
yeah.
so I'd be intrigued to see if it holds up, if it's better than I remember or whatnot.
Right. I do feel like there's a few of his filmography that I need to watch a few more times because Memento I've seen like I don't know. I don't rewatch a lot of movies, but I've probably seen Memento at least 4 times,
Mhm.
if not a couple more. I've seen all of the Batman films, you know, a number of different times. But Insomnia, Prestige, even Inception and Interstellar, as much as I enjoyed them when they came out, I haven't done a lot of rewatching of
Yeah.
those films. So I feel like there's some that I probably need to rewatch. Like I would be ill prepared to rank his filmography at this juncture because outside of Memento and the Batman trilogy, I don't know if I've seen any of them more than I think I've seen Inception a couple times, but I've only seen Interstellar once. I've only seen Dunkirk once. I've only seen Oppenheimer once. I think I've seen Prestige maybe a time and a half, and Insomnia like once.
Yeah.
So
Inception was
yeah,
one I would be say look like I didn't love it. I was there's aspects of it that I loved and aspects of it I didn't. So it was kind of right in the middle for me. But again, like you haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters.
right.
So I'd be, and a lot has changed. But I didn't have a kid at that point, and there's such a big like father-daughter relationship within that. I wonder if that would, impact me differently
Right.
all these years
Could.
later. So
Definitely could. So I guess that kind of transitions me into like one of the main things that I want to kind of start off with discussing because it is kind of the Nolan aspect of the Odyssey here for 2026. So I had two different questions kind of around Nolan, and we've just spent some time talking about all of his films. And one of the more fascinating ideas that I've heard come out of some of the different discourse with this film and Christopher Nolan, and I am going to try to keep this podcast as much about the actual film and like real things that we can talk about and not the nonsense that represents the world we live in.
yeah.
But one of the fascinating ideas I've heard was that this film is I don't know if culmination is the right word, but this film feels like a summary or a culmination or a connection piece to like his entire career. So
Mm.
if you and this is kind of I'm kind of summarizing or trying to make this easier than how I heard it explained and adding a little bit of my own touch to it, I guess, as well. But a lot of people view, you know, Memento as a film that's really dealing with identity and things of that nature. You have Batman as a story, especially in this trilogy, is you know, are you becoming the person you're meant to be? There's obsession involved in the Prestige. Inception is a man trying to get home to his children. Interstellar is a father separated from his family. Dunkirk is about survival. Oppenheimer is about living with the consequences of your actions. The Odyssey has a little bit of all of that. Is it do you view that as like some sort of culmination of all of this stuff? Has he been preparing to tell this story for 20 years without realizing it? Is it just something that just spoke to him, you think, as far as themes he's used to, and that's why he kind of gravitated towards this? Or do you see it as something that's completely separate from the films that he's done before?
I think it's certainly something that has interested him since the beginning because, as we mentioned, Troy, like he was actually attached to that early on, and he was potentially going to be the director until he felt like he wasn't up to being able to direct that yet. So I think like this material, obviously, it has interested him since the beginning, and I think throughout like all of his movies, you see a lot of the influences of the things that he loves. Like he never made a James Bond movie, but you certainly see influences of those films in everything from The Dark Knight to Tenet. I know you haven't seen it, but there's like
Further
many people
connection,
said,
though.
yeah, like many people said, it's the closest thing he's done to a Bond film, and and I think there are some common themes that you bring up a lot, but he loves like time, the use of time. We see
Yeah.
that a great deal. So I think there are just certain stories that I think he connects with because of the machinations of them, like the way they're
Mhm.
designed, like the way he can play with time, the way he can the longing that you mentioned. So I don't think it's necessarily not a coincidence. I don't know if that at I don't think like, day one he's like, okay, I am gonna do all these and then my magnum
Right.
opus is going to be the Odyssey. But I certainly could see him thinking like, okay, now I feel comfortable. Like
Yeah.
now that like I've done this and also understanding the challenges to just to get to a point where you can make a movie like this. Like I think he mentioned like after Oppenheimer was a bigger success than they even imagined. Like he had that, metaphorical blank check to do whatever he wants. So he was in a place both financially as, a filmmaker and as a craftsman ready to take on this story. So I think it's kind of a comedy. It's basically the perfect storm where it was something he's wanted to do and now he has the capability of doing it. And
Mhm.
then within that, he took elements of the story that I think appeals to him most and not reading knowing a little bit of it, he clearly put his own spin on it and brought those elements in. So I think it certainly is him working towards this and then taking the opportunities like, okay, well now it's now or never, and biting the bullet and doing it. So that's my take at least.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. Yeah, I don't think there was like a conscious effort necessarily, but I can see like he's played in this sandbox enough where he could feel comfortable, or just like when you decide to do stuff, you do stuff you're passionate about, and he's done stories that have these elements, so it's a maybe just a subconsciously like a clear choice to do something else that speaks to a
Hmm.
lot of the themes that you're used to like telling. A lot of directors have certain things that they tackle a lot, like you said with the time and his situation. I was wondering, he is known for his intellect, right? He's known
Hmm.
for having these films that are almost about similar to like solving a puzzle. He has playing with the elements of time. He has the like the intelligence when it comes to the actual filmmaking itself, right? And like how he's going to do it and how he's going to frame things and what elements he's going to use. So like he has a lot of that in his like repertoire, or as far as like his legacy of what he's known for. Do you feel like with the Odyssey, we've gotten what could be called his most emotional film that takes a lot of those other elements but adds more of the core being, all of these emotional topics like guilt and regret and coming to terms with your decisions and
Hmm.
forgiveness and your family and what is home? What does that mean? How do we get, all of these things? Do you feel like
Yeah.
he's been emotional throughout all of his films, or do you feel like he kind of tapped into that more than we've seen before with this one?
I don't think he's been emotional throughout out of the films. I think if anything, that's like one criticism in the sense of like his films can be a bit cold,
Hmm.
but I think there are certain that's not a word. Sequences is there are moments and pieces of that where he's able to break through a bit or utilize at least actors that I think to me I think the most emotional movie still, or maybe it's just because I'm thinking of that one scene with Matthew McConaughey watching his daughter grow up like right
Yeah.
before his eyes. Like that to me still feels like the most emotional in there in the ending as well. So I, on an emotion standpoint, I felt like Interstellar was a bit stronger with those sequences. Certainly that it's here per se, but I don't know if it ever, the way it's structured in a way, it's like you don't necessarily get as much time to
Yeah, I get that.
have those emotional connections. Like you see the regret, you see the fear, you see the horror of like coming to terms with one's actions, but in the sense of like emotion of characters towards one another, I don't think it is not. I'm not saying it's a fault, but I don't find it more emotional than anything he's done before. If anything, a little bit less in a few
Okay.
films. But how about yourself?
I mean, I think I would put Interstellar as maybe the most emotional if I'm remembering my experience right with them all. Again, some of these I've only seen one time.
Yeah,
Um, I think I would put this one, like if I'm doing like a line and I have super emotional on one end and
yeah,
no emotion on the other side, I'm probably still putting Odyssey on the half that is towards the emotion side.
yeah,
I'm not putting it as far as I put Interstellar, but I'm not also putting it like on the left
yeah.
side with like just like no emotion at all. And obviously it's almost impossible to make a movie with no emotion, right? Like you're gonna have some elements of that, or you're
Unless you're
not human, I guess.
unless you're Yui Bull and you're making
Yeah,
a
yeah,
video game adaptation, then you're really good at making no emotions.
yeah.
Right? Like,
I think some of it just depends on like what speaks to you from an emotional standpoint too.
yeah,
I think some are obviously going to really connect to like the father daughter thing, like you talked about with
hmm,
Interstellar, or different things like even the Batman films. You can find emotion in there where as Bruce Wayne as a character is kind of traversing his life and with
yeah,
his parents and things like that. There's obviously, I mean, I think we're somewhat cold to it or immune to it because we've seen the Batman origin story so
yeah,
many times, but like had you not seen that before, there is emotion with losing your parents and things of that
yeah,
nature, right? And trying to like fill that void. So I think all of them have like a little elements. I felt it a little bit more with this one than I have like, even as much as I love like Memento, and like I think Inception's like a very well constructed film, but I felt more emotion with this one maybe than I did with those.
yeah.
Um,
I would agree with that for
yeah.
sure.
I mean, I think the thing about this one is, for me, a lot of adventure films or epics or these types of things are about like an end goal or an end destination, like trying to get somewhere, whatever the case may be, right? Like um we're traversing a long environment or a lot of years or something, where we're on a journey. Like that's like the hero's journey, it kind of comes with adventure films, right?
Hmm.
And I think one thing that I felt a little bit more in this one was it wasn't about getting home as much as it was about Odysseus's belief that he was worthy of
Yeah,
home in that respect. So I felt like that was like a little bit of a twist on the adventure film like trope that I enjoyed. Was It's not just about him getting there and then everything's just going to be sunshine and roses. It was like, am I worthy? Do I deserve to even be there? Can I justify myself going back into that setting and things of that nature? It's obviously been a number of years. We've made some choices, things of that. Like,
hmm,
obviously, still is the journey, right? There still is overcoming the obstacles. There still is like the evolution or the character arc that we're going to get with most of these stories just inherently. But I did appreciate that it was a little bit more of like w- what he felt about inside, and being worthy of like what home is, I guess.
that was a bit unexpected. And not just that aspect of it, but clearly what this movie was saying on like a social political level. I know,
Mhm.
obviously, you mentioned like keeping it to the movie within itself, related to the film, but like when I think Christopher Nolan, like he touches upon social political things. You see it a bit with The Dark Knight and like the idea of like Big Brother and pieces. And I wasn't, I didn't know if that would be at all within this. Like, it's obviously this archaic story in a good way that's gone on forever? Could it really tie to
Mhm.
today's world, or our times in a way? But clearly, like, I don't, it seemed that was certainly there. It seemed not just our times, but the idea of what war can do to society, and seeing Odysseus come to that realization that, like, once it's broken, it can't be fixed, and like that regret. And then it all started making sense regarding, like, so many people speak in like the modern English of today. And I don't know if that was partially just because it's more of a financial decision because you're doing the
Mhm.
Odyssey. People speaking like they did back in the day with that, which would scare people away. But I think it also ties into, like, again, what this was saying about, you know, the way in which politics and the way the world functions has been broken to such a degree. Like, the decorum is of the, Zeus's law has
Mhm.
long left the building, and um and how we're still like paying for,
Yeah.
I forget the exact phrasing about the people from the island, or the ships from the sea or whatever. And then realizing that, those are actually us. Like, we're the people that are, I guess, spoilers a bit for the Odyssey, which I guess we can just say up front. We're gonna spoil it. It's been like with Project Hail Mary. If we saw it in theaters, and considering it is the Odyssey, I don't know there's much to spoil.
And
But I guess
how old is the poem?
I don't know, old
I don't.
enough. But that surprised me the most. Like, within the same vein of
Mhm.
how it was him coming to terms with accepting, and then the allegorical elements of that. And not, I don't think I think it was well handled because it's not super direct. It's not like you can take it a lot of different ways, but I think it certainly is him saying something without it being too overt and too on the nose, which I think can happen a lot with movies today. Even movies I agree with, I'm like, okay, I agree with you, but maybe
Right.
take a step back a bit. But I thought there was tact here that
Yeah.
I appreciated.
I too thought that, like, being able to connect it to, I mean, I know the poem's been around for thousands of years, and you can't do that if you don't have some element of, like, timelessness, like,
Yeah.
where it just doesn't matter. But, like, I was also surprised with his ability to connect it to the modern audience, I guess, in a way of showing how you can become, and I think this is pertinent to today, whether it be social political, whether it be hobbies, whether it be the internet world that a lot of people live in and things like that. But, like, how much you can get so laser focused or tunnel vision on something that may be initially a good venture, or have a good intent behind it, but that you
Mhm.
can become so lost with how much you get into that and lose, like, you have blinders on to the rest of the world.
Mhm.
Almost like that, the idea of, I know Obsession has been a movie this year, but, like, the idea of being obsessed with something or being so wrapped up with something that you start, what's the phrase? You lose trees through the forest, or the forest through the
Yeah.
trees.
Forced through the trees. Yeah.
Yeah, the forest through the trees, right? Like, you're losing sight of, like, have I taken a step back to see, is this still worthy? Is this still
Yeah.
worth the decisions and the sacrifices I'm making? Because it's easy, like, I don't know, using a simple example, like in business or in sports, like, you can be so focused on winning that you start to win the wrong way, right? Like,
Mhm.
you lose integrity, or you take the shortcuts, or for sports, you pump the steroids, or you start betting on outcomes, or whatever it is, like, you lose sight of,
Yeah.
like, what's real. And I think that was a interesting way that he kind of had a little play on that too, with, like, how much he can just, "Hey, I have this idea that I think is gonna work." And it reminds me of, like, the Jurassic Park line, right? Like, we became so, what is it? We became, like, so obsessed with could we do it that we never asked if we should or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the Malcolm line, which is, I butchered, but, like, it's a great line, obviously, in cinema. So I thought that was an interesting take, and I also was somewhat impressed with, and I'm not, Nolan has done this before, but, like, with a blockbuster like this, with an epic summer film based on a property that everybody knows coming out in a time where it's not easy to make for every movie to make a bunch of money at the box office, like how much he was willing to, I don't know, let certain scenes breathe, to let the film go for, I know that's not rare to have long films, but like he's
Yeah.
doing this in a way where it's not action every other second or joke every 2 minutes or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be that a lot of other films franchise blockbusters have tried to rely on to keep the audience's attention. And I was somewhat impressed that over a nearly, what was this, like almost a 3-hour film, that it does have moments where I can see it losing some audience, but I appreciate the fact that it does let some stuff breathe and it has some long stretches of more like visual storytelling and some of that where it's not just exposition dump, joke, action sequence, repeat,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. What did you feel about the pacing and kind of like his ability to, I guess, trust the audience to like be along for the ride, even though it's a long one?
You know what's? I think I think you make a good point because it's a movie that was made for adults and wasn't afraid of that fact. Like
Mhm.
it didn't like have to. Let's throw in some levity just for levity's sake, like you mentioned, or the comedic
Right.
relief. It felt fitting, and I know it being nearly 3 hours or whatever it was. Like I never felt bored. Like I never felt. I felt the structure of it kind of kept me intrigued, and knowing that okay, like it's obviously like you have an idea where the story is going. How do you keep people interested when they, in most cases, should have an understanding of like what this story is or have some idea or expectations. And I thought how it went with that story, how it was struck again, similar to like Dunkirk, how he loves to like start at one point and go to others, like
Mhm.
the constant flipping back and forth. And I do think he kind of expects people to have somewhat of a working knowledge of where the story originates, which could maybe a fault to it in a bit. But I think if you came in completely blind, knowing nothing, you might lose. It might be a bit confusing at first.
Or it might
But
feel like he's rushing certain sequences because you're like, or like giving you the cliff notes in a
yeah,
way.
yeah,
I don't know.
so yeah, I do. If anything, that was my one. I wish it would stay with scenes sometimes longer, like or
Yeah.
like we get some glimpses of certain things like like the giants with like it's like oh I would like to be within this. It was so impressive to see. Like I'd like to be within this moment more, or see other elements of the stories, or see more of of the of this world because it seemed
Mhm.
like we were like you said, Cliff Notes is a good example of it. So yeah,
I can think of
at
too,
the
like
same
the whirlpool sequence, like they kind of set that up a little bit. Like you can go this way and it's gonna be this, you can go that way and it's gonna be that, and like this is gonna be this big dramatic thing. And I think they were on to the next thing after that, like within 5 minutes. It's like,
yeah, it is. So it is interesting where like the scenes within themselves tend to like take some time, like the
mhm.
which I think maybe the best one of the best scenes is the Cersei scene with the
Yes.
pigs and whatnot. Like that,
Ugh.
like I loved how like it like it took some time. Although I know with the actual story, it's a lot longer.
Yeah.
But it within the way it's structured, the one downside is that we do fly around so much. It is trying to like,
Yeah.
okay, we have, we have a lot of room to cover, so we have to kind of go fast forward a bit. So it kind of tried to have
Could
the
this have
best of
been
both.
like a could I hate to even say this, but there was enough material in the Odyssey that you could almost excuse this being like a trilogy.
Yeah,
Or you know what I
oof,
mean? Like I hate the
yeah,
idea of that, but like you think of like the
yeah,
Lord of the Rings, right? Like
yeah,
how much time they had to kind of develop each of those films. Like I'm not saying I wanted an Odyssey trilogy, but like you could have almost justified with the amount of material that there is that like
yeah, or at least like a part one, part two, at least.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
I'd rather this. I'd rather
Yes,
like be
I would
leaving
too.
wanting more, and rather than feel like I think it'd be hard to like within that, sure, like together they would tell a complete story. I think it'd be difficult for like part one to feel like you're watching a complete movie. So
Yeah, I
I
agree.
if it's gonna be impossible no matter what you do because this is such an epic. Like it is the epic. So uh, f- I'd rather leave wanting more, or leave like, okay, well now I want to know more.
Yeah.
I think that's a better feeling than like, okay, well now I have to come back and do this all over again. So that
And I
was my
think like some of us are like tired of that in a lot
yeah,
of ways.
oh,
Like not
yes,
just the money grab, but like does everything have to be a two-parter? Does everything have to be a trilogy? Does everything have to be like
exactly,
that
yeah,
type of thing? And I think
or
for youngsters too, like youngsters, I'm
yeah,
talking like an old man, but like for the younger generations, I think this is enough to like say like, hey, watch this film and you may be interested in actually
yeah.
reading the book or something that's more in depth. Not necessarily, I guess you may not read the entire epic, but like you may be more inclined to like look into that material.
Yeah, or
It,
you
it
just
whets
be
the
like me
appetite
and go
enough.
back and watch Troy, which I feel like that's what a lot of people did. So
That too.
it's
That's one way to do it. Those that don't read, no, I'm just kidding. So another
uh,
thing that obviously Nolan is somewhat known for is his filmmaking abilities. And one thing that this definitely brought to light, similar to how we kind of talked about Project Hail Mary, and maybe the combination of Project Hail Mary and the Odyssey both making a crap ton of money this year will send a message. But practical filmmaking versus CGI, Dan.
mhm,
Um, Massive practical sets, real locations, physical ships, real environments, camera tricks that make things seem like there's no possible way that's actually being a real thing
yeah.
that is filmed. Like, what was your take as you watched it and as you reflected afterwards of like what you appreciated or what you thought of the filmmaking style?
It was like a breath of fresh air. I can't even think of
Mhm.
the phrase, but it looked amazing. And it to pull, we talked about movies that make you love movies. Jurassic Park is certainly there,
Mhm.
and I think it also gets I think CGI gets a bad rap because people think CGI equals bad. It's like no, bad CGI equals bad, and
Right.
this movie has plenty of CGI in it.
Yeah.
It does the Jurassic Park thing where it like in order for CGI to be at its best, it's you are able to mesh it with practical and digital, and I think that's what exactly this does. It uses classic camera tricks, like literally using little people and giants to make that giant scene. But it's not like they don't use CGI to make things up
Right.
a bit, but it's not all CGI. It's not like they're in
You're
a
telling
blue
me like the
screen.
two-headed thing was not real?
No, no, and it's not like you're watching people in with blue screen costumes in a blue screen background where it's like this is basically just an animated film.
Right.
So uh it everything had weight to it.
Yes.
This like the most famous sequence, of course, probably being the Cyclops sequence. Like
Yeah.
there's clearly CGI being used there in multiple ways, but it feels like they're all in the same spot. And it
Mhm.
does bring you back that like, well, I wonder how they did that, which is like that wonderful feeling that I feel like we get when we're watching some of these older films that we tend to talk about a lot, but
Yeah.
certainly had that here. But what was your takeaway when it came to just the use of special effects?
I mean, I think this would be a fascinating film to watch a behind the scenes like
Oh
documentary on
yeah.
or the special effect like the special effects. The special features on the DVD like from back in the day like this would
Hmm.
be one that I would actually like a lot of times they have like whatever reels or something like behind the scenes of some films and you're like what what do I need to see the behind the scenes of this film for? You know what I mean? Like this would be one where I would be like I'm actually like seeking this out. Like, show me all the
Hmm.
tricks. Show me how you did these things. Because even just a few of the things I've seen have just been like, when I was watching it, I had no idea. And then, like, afterwards, I'm like, that is amazing. And I didn't realize how amazing it was in the moment. And now I'm like even more impressed with how they did that
Yeah.
or whatever. I think the guys on Film Spotting kind of said it the best when I listened to their review of this film. And they said, like, you could basically smell the salt water. Like you could feel, all of the stuff that was happening and it had a weight to it like you were talking about. So I really appreciated it. Like you got to understand that doing a film like this where we're going to be dealing with Cyclops and people being turned into animals and all of the different like giants and crazy even the Trojan horse itself like you're going to be dealing with all of these things that if not done right, could look awful. Like
Hmm.
we've seen it before, right? Like we've seen it in different films. Like you said, bad CGI is bad CGI. But like it was a pretty tall order when you're tackling this to number one. decide which moments in the Odyssey you're going to cover, right?
Mhm.
Like that's step one is like, what are we going to avoid altogether and what are we going to like focus on? And I'll give them credit. They didn't necessarily back away from some things that you would be like, that's really going to be hard to pull off. And
Mhm.
I just think they did a good, like, there was never a moment where I was taken out of the film because of a visual. So
Yeah.
I really appreciated that fact. And, it's some of them may be different than what you're what you are used to with this story or what you like see in your head or think they're gonna do, but I think they made it work for I'm like, I can't recall a time where I was like, "Well, that one may not hold up." Like, there's times before where you see other films and you're like, "That looks okay now, but I think in 10 years that's probably gonna, like, reek of the time." I
Mhm.
didn't get that with this film, so I was pretty impressed with the filmmaking and the way that they were able to craft this was, I think, something that will probably be looked at by others to address how they make stuff in the future. Like, I'm hoping this and Project Hail Mary can send a message, like,
That would be
do better.
ideal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
do better.
because yeah, I think it's the message ultimately is like you need it's a it's a meshing of both worlds. Like it doesn't have to be all CGI. I know, and I get like financially, it's like well, it's cheaper, but I think
Mhm,
when you spend the money, you got to spend money to make money, as they say. And I think Project Hail Mary, which was expensive but not super expensive,
mhm,
I think it showed that you can do that and it not be tied to a franchise or anything like that. Obviously, a successful book, but still, that's not. It's still something that is not like a franchise a film, or that with the Odyssey. Of course, the Odyssey has the lineage, and of course, Nolan himself is a franchise. But again, he got there because of making movies like this.
right.
So
I
you mentioned that not taking
Go
you
ahead.
out of the film. I did have a question. Did anything take you out of the film, or in the sense of we haven't really talked about the actors or the performances yet? So
The
I was
there was
curious
yeah.
if any what were your thoughts on obviously you have Matt Damon, we have the star-studded cast, and like pretty much everyone's like an A-list star.
Right.
But what were your thoughts on the performances?
So, I am a sucker for Matt Damon. Like, I like him in almost everything he does.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I'm a good, like, critic of, like, whether he's doing good or not. I feel like he captured the right elements of the character for me.
Mm,
Like, he didn't come across as a Superman. He didn't come across as, like, this, uh as much as he as having these poems and songs me you know, written about him and his life and stuff like that. I think his performance was able to like ground that somewhat and make it more about the real human behind the myth, so to speak. And I
mhm.
think that's one of the themes obviously they're covering in the film and kind of highlighting. So I appreciate Matt Damon and he's one of those few actors like that can do no wrong in my book. Um I say that and someone's gonna like post like a crappy Matt Damon role. I'll be like, well, I forgot about that one. But I think
Yeah.
he was good. I thought overall, like obviously I know Samantha Morton and John Leguizamo are getting like a ton of love, and that is 100% warranted. Like Circe and Eumaeus, I can't remember what the guy's name is, but um the faithful
Yeah.
servant slave of Odysseus, John Leguizamo is amazing in this. It was almost like I would have to go back through his filmography to see like where I would rank this role. But
Well,
it's
number
gotta be
one, of
near
course, is the clown from Spawn, but then what everything,
this may be a
besides
close second, I don't know.
yeah.
Like, um, I thought,
Well, sorry, Luigi, Super Mario Brothers. Uh, I'm
okay,
being
this
really
is
just.
I'm really thinking like this may be one of his best then.
Oh
Like
yeah, I mean he's done good movie. I mean he's
yeah,
done good
yeah.
movie. I actually think he's actually quite good in Spawn, despite that movie being awful. But no, he's done some good stuff. Uh he was in Summer of Sam, which
Yeah.
so.
He's
But
been
yeah,
in good stuff, but I don't know if he's ever like and I've always been a fan of his, like, I guess, like, on the more of a subtle fan because like, he doesn't always, like, jump off the screen at you
yeah,
as much as, like, here it was just like, "Holy cow," like, he has reinvented
yeah.
himself and,
I
like,
had no idea
disguised
he was.
himself.
I had no idea he was even in this. Like, and I agree. I think in a star-studded cast, like his performance is up there as one of my favorites.
Yeah, I
As with
like
the ones you mentioned.
Charlize Theron. I liked. I thought, for a big name, like I think she was able to do what was needed to do for the Calypso character. So I enjoyed that. I do say, I do want to say, like, I think John Bernthal should look like he did in this film in all of his future films. Like, he should just make that his permanent, like, screw the long hair, go bald, put whatever like tattoos or whatever else you had in this film, like just be that guy from here on out. No, I
Yeah.
appreciated John Barenthal. Anne Hathaway was good. Robert Pattinson was good. I will say he does have the one moment that may have taken me out of the film, and I don't know if it was intentional or not. Maybe it was supposed to be hilarious, but when he's calling out those weapons every time before they drop through the I was like, "This is ridiculous." Like, he was doing it in such a way that, like, I was laughing to a point where I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be finding this as funny
I think
as
you're supposed to
I'm."
find him like cowardly in that moment for
Yes,
sure. Like
but it
he's
was
like,
like the timing and the way he did
yeah.
it was, like, almost a comedy sketch piece. Um, and I know Tom Holland is, like, the one that's getting the most criticized in this film. I thought he did what he was supposed to do. Like,
Yeah.
I think Nolan cast him perfectly with the idea that he is gonna come across as a little bit boyish and naive and inexperienced and all of those things that Tom Holland has done in other roles. So I think it was smart casting, and I thought he did what he was supposed to do. I don't understand 100% why he's getting the most, it seems like, criticized out of everybody, but I thought he was good. Maybe I'm just a Tom Holland fan. I don't know.
I think his part is tough because
Yeah.
a lot of his acting is reacting. Like a lot of
Mhm.
his role is reacting to the world around him. And from like, all the suitors that were there for his mom to I think his scenes with John Barenthal, I think
Mhm.
if you go back and watch those, you obviously when you focus on John Barenthal and like his presence and everything like that. Uh but I think what you see with like Tom Holland, like he's learning about his father and like
Right.
something like and I think you see a lot of his admiration begin to grow and like his in- he is in this like challenging role where like part of him um is conflicted because like he loves his dad or his memories of his dad, but at the same time just the concern of like his world falling apart. I think it's a very hard role to play. It's not very showy. Like he doesn't
Mhm.
get that scene where he's like, taking off becoming the hero per se. So I agree. I think people seem really harsh on him. And like I don't think like he's the strength of this film, but
Right.
I was never distracted or felt like his character was an issue. If anything was distracting, it was just that there are so many stars. It's like Charlize Theron shows up and it's like everyone is like an A-list. It's like it's hard to there's so many big actors that it's
Yeah.
hard to like forget that you're watching a movie because you're seeing the actor before you're seeing the performance.
Yeah.
Eventually, I
Totally
think with
get it.
all of them, I was able to get there for the most part. But I think like if anything, that was like I don't know if you need Charlize Theron, but at the
I
same time, it's like,
agree.
but
I agree,
but
but I think it was the right ones that could still like, yes, it's a lot of big names, but it was like choosing the right big names that are not going to,
yeah,
I don't know what, force something or not going to like, like, yes, like why Charlize Theron, but it was like, but I felt like she did the role right, right?
yeah,
Like it is like why John Barenthal, but like he did the role right, right? Like
yeah.
I got a lot of that. Like I can get some people that are like, why was Zendaya in this movie? And I can see that. Like for me, I don't care. Put Zendaya in every movie, and I'll be fine with it. Like I think she's a pretty good actress, but like I could see that, right? But I felt
I,
like most of them like stayed within the confines of what their role was.
That's a valid point because they're all stars, but they're also all actors. Like, there's no one
Yes,
here that doesn't. Everyone here has been acclaimed for one reason or another, and rightfully
right.
so. So, yeah, like I do feel like Charlize Theron, if anyone didn't, I
Hmm.
feel like didn't get as much, but that's
Right.
also again her part partially the role. But at the same time, we don't get movies like this, and as you probably need someone where you trust and can have the weight that's needed. And no one felt like they were just there because of their name. They all
Yeah.
have proven themselves actor wise. Even like someone like Travis Scott, which I know he's like comes from the world of music, but I thought
Thought he
I
did
didn't
good.
know that.
Yeah.
So
If you didn't know it, I thought it worked. Like Himesh
yeah,
Patel, I thought did a good job as like the second in command who was
yeah, I thought
challenging.
he's another one where I felt like he was really he came out. I know he was in Tenet as well.
Yeah.
So he was really good in that. I thought he was good in this, and I did like you mentioned you're a huge Matt Damon fan. Myself as well. I think we come from the like generation of the Bourne films are like I love the Bourne
Yeah.
films. So, but what I love about this is that I never felt like I was watching Jason Bourne. Maybe a little bit at the end, with that final sequence, but he he plays the character. Odysseus is this complex figure. Like
Yeah.
he's heroic, but at the same time he's selfish. He is regretful in this, of course. Like there's a lot of different portions to him as a character. He makes a lot of mistakes, a lot of dumb mistakes at times. And I thought like he handled that well, where he was able to. I think it might be up there as one of his best performances. I would not be shocked if like he gets an Oscar nomination. I don't know if he'll win. We were
Right.
way too early for that, but I was a little. If I was one of my concerns was like, I don't, like, is it just Matt Damon because of Matt Damon?
Right.
And as it ended, I'm like, oh no, like I thought he did great with the performance.
Yeah. And apparently, like just seeing some of the cast interaction too, like it seemed like it was a cast that gelled really well together. I know sometimes you have this many big names, you expect there to be like maybe less kumbaya moments or whatever, but like there was I saw an interview, I think it was either Zendaya or Tom Holland with like talking to Matt Damon, and like there was just this like mutual respect from a generation of actors to a different generation of actors, and like appreciating the craft and the talent of everybody involved. So it seemed like it was well orchestrated from that standpoint. I also want to give a quick shout out because I thought he was incredible in this moment, and I haven't heard anybody talk about him at all. But and I know it's a super small moment, but James Remar as Tiresias, the blind prophet in the underworld, like
Yeah.
if that was not the most perfect casting ever, like he played that role perfect, I thought, and like just I don't know, like I want to almost watch it again just to like focus in on on his role there as he's kind of prophesizing to uh Odysseus about like what's going to happen, and as again like this blind prophet, I thought was like, he almost reminded me of one of the guys from Pirates of the Caribbean. I can't remember which one, but I thought that was a neat little role as well. Anybody that we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to highlight from a cast standpoint?
No, well, I feel like I should also mention Anne Hathaway because I thought she was
Yeah.
phenomenal too. Like I mentioned how there wasn't as much emotion within it, but I did when we got to finally see her and Odysseus come together. Like she held her own. I thought she had
Mhm.
some of the best scenes within this, and she again not an easy part, but I think
No.
she does wonderful. And I feel like Anne Hathaway can be one of those people love to hate because she's a bit
Yeah.
like she takes herself very seriously and things
Right.
like that. But I think in this you see why because she's really good at what she does. So, and I think that's probably
Yeah.
what they all. It seemed like actors who realized the rarity of what they were doing, and
Hmm.
that appreciation I think helped. I don't know this is from the outside, and looking from the outside in, but it seemed to
Right.
certainly go a long way.
So I just had a couple other questions I wanted to throw by you. I know we kind of talked a little bit about the practical effects and things of that nature, but I'm curious now. Obviously, they had to pick and choose like some of the sequences that they were going to try to depict and whatnot, and which ones they were going to spend some time with, and we got a bunch of these big sequences or big set pieces or obstacles. And I was wondering, as we go through them, so you have like the Trojan horse aspect, right? You have the Cyclops meeting, you have the sirens, you have Circe, you have Scylla in the whirlpool, you have this visit to the underworld, you have the various, giant sequences. You had a couple different ones like that. You have the return to Ithaca in that final confrontation. Like, was there a set piece or a sequence that just like really blew you away, or what were some of your like favorites? And was there any of those sequences that maybe didn't quite work as well for you?
No, I don't think there's any sequences that didn't necessarily work as well. I mean, the pig sequence is probably the one that stands out the most, but
Yeah.
then the final action set piece, like it's something we building towards, and it felt like uh rightfully epic. If there's
Mhm.
anything that like maybe hurt it a bit was because you can tell this was all in IMAX, and like obviously with those cameras, there's challenges in the sense of like how you can move them, and it felt a bit claustrophobic. But at the same time, I feel like that was certainly purposeful because that's the way you wanted to feel. But I thought it was certainly a standout sequence, and then the other sequence just being the Cyclops sequence with
Yeah.
just the meshing of practical and
Mhm.
um and CGI. So those were, I think those nothing ever felt like it wasn't fan, everything the money was on the screen. And
Yeah.
then when we finally get to that moment of the Troy, the Trojan horse, and if anything, I would even wanted to mind a little bit more within that, but at the same time, I think the point there was just to see it how it impacted Odysseus, and I think that ended up working well. How about yourself?
I mean, I think I agree with probably those two. Like the Trojan horse sequence is interesting, right? Like I guess they added some elements that I had never. I don't know if it was in the poem from when whatever 27 years ago when I covered that in high school, whether it was on the beach and people were drowning inside the horse. I don't know if some of that was just a Nolan, interpretation or stuff like that. But I thought that was interesting to see on that scale, like the way they did that. But I think the Cyclops and Circe sequences were the ones that I think were the kind of the meat and potatoes of like really showing what they could do with this. I think there were some cool elements of some of those other sequences, like when they're showing the giants and the small, compared to
Hmm.
like normal people and things of that nature were interesting. I thought the underworld was well done, but I thought they all were handled in a good way. But I think
Yeah.
it's easy to go to those two, the Cyclops and Circe.
The other world scene is a good call out because that was
Mhm.
that looked like it's hard to like go back to in the sense of because it was so eerie and
Yeah,
creepy, but in a good way. So that's a good point. You make a
yeah, I agree with that. And I was also wondering, like, this had nothing to do with listening to another podcast or doing any research or anything. This was like the the thought in my head as I left the theater was around this. Like I'm walking out of the theater and in my head, I'm thinking to myself, when was the last not part of a like non-franchise epic film of this nature that worked as well as this one did? And I was trying to like rack my brain in the car coming home, like take out all the comic book, like you can't use one of the Avengers movies, right? Like Planet of the Apes is a franchise, so you can't count Planet of the Apes, and you can't count Dune because that's part of a franchise. So those are some of the other ones that I like thought of, but I'm like, how far back do we? And I know this is based on something else, like, but it's not a franchise. It's not film five that's been led up to, through four other films and things of that nature. So it doesn't have the advantage of something like the third Lord of the Rings film where you've had that
Mhm.
build up or whatever. I was like, when was the last time that we just got something that was a standalone epic or fantasy film that like worked as well as this one did? And maybe you'll have some that you can think of that I didn't think of, but I almost had to go back to the year, what was it, 2000 or when did The Gladiator come out?
2000.
2000? Like, has it been 25 years since we've gotten like a standalone epic of this type of nature that worked just by itself to this level? Or what's your take on that?
I mean, yeah, it's without franchises. Obviously you think of like Lord of the Rings, but of course that's like a
Right.
franchise. I mean, it's hard to say because there's movies I'm thinking of like what was the Guillermo del Toro fantasy adventure? That was I can't think of the name. Not the movie that kind of put him on the map, but I can't think of the name of it. But again, it wasn't like huge scale. I mean, the first Pirates film that eventually became a franchise, but when it
Yeah.
was a standalone, like that was like that. I thought was I wouldn't say it's nearly as good as this, but that was a good example of like an epic type film that had those elements. Oh man, I can't. Pan's Labyrinth was the movie I was thinking of.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Um, which isn't. It's not like it has. It's not like it has massive set pieces. It just
Right.
has crazy creatures. I don't know. I can't really think
Like it
of
really had me
anything.
thinking. Like I think I would put Gladiator in that camp because I think Gladiator when it came out was just like, regardless of how anybody feels about it now or this, that, and the other. I know there's been a sequel, so I guess you could call it a franchise, but I don't think that counts the same. It wasn't like a series that led up to like something bigger. But like I thought about that one and I was just like really trying to rack my brain. And I was like, because at first I was even including franchise stuff, I was like, I feel like you have to go back to like the more modern Planet of the Apes, even if you or I guess you could count Dune from the last few years. Like Dune and the modern Planet of the Apes films, are those the closest franchise ones we've gotten in the recent time periods that you would like put on that same level?
We're just thinking like epics, like fantasy, like Sword and
Yeah,
Sandal
kind of just
adventures.
sort of like just in somewhere in that fantasy realm where
So
epic fantasy.
like so everywhere, everything, everywhere at once wouldn't count, right? Because that's not really. That's more like science fiction, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's an interesting thing to think about because that was where I was getting this like, kind of like back in the day, right? Like you had Ben-Hur and you had like Lawrence of Arabia or
Hmm.
Spartacus or something like that. I was like, "Uh, is this like our modern version of something like that where it's like, Gladiator and the Odyssey and like a couple things like that?" Like I do think, from a scale standpoint, the Planet of the Apes films and from a quality standpoint, like what we've been getting with the Dune films is kind of close to that. But again, I guess it depends if you bring in franchises or not. But I think it's an unfair advantage when you do have like some films that are able to make some of them more than they are based on like like that's what I think of when I think of Avengers, right? Like that took 8 films to build up to it or however many. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like not that isn't still worthy, but like it was interesting like coming out of the theater thinking like this is like a blockbuster that I don't think we've seen in quite a while. Like, I'm not
yeah.
saying it's like the end all be all. I'm not saying it's going to be like my number one best film of the year, or best film of the decade, but like I had that feel of like scratching that itch of just this epic fantasy. Like I couldn't put a finger on when the last time I had that feeling was coming out of the theater.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly been films not within this genre. Like I'm thinking of like Gravity, for example. That
Hmm.
was like, oh, that was just pure spectacle. Or even Captain Phillips, that was just like very suspenseful. That come to mind. But yeah, in adventure like this, we had Gladiator 2, but no. So I think the Dune movies is what would come to mind.
Yeah,
I do really love those, but again, that's another franchise per se. So it's been a while since we've gotten something like this. Unless you want to say like again, if we want to expand genres, and we can say a few months
right.
ago with like Project Hail Mary, but
Yeah,
that's more science
I think
fiction
the
than
first Pirates movie is a good. That's probably a
yeah,
good comp. I know it turns into a franchise, but if you just take the first movie of a franchise by itself, like I think you could get that. That's why I was like, would not count the Avengers and like what was Iron Man the first movie of that series. Like
yeah,
I don't know if it quite hits the same as
hmm
what we're talking about. So like it's definitely an
yeah.
interesting thing to kind of
It's
like think through.
definitely because it's basically the superhero film is kind of
Pacific
overtook
Rim,
them.
like it's got the spectacle, but I don't know it has the quality. Like
Yeah, I mean that's like a fun adventure, and then there's
yeah.
like you know smaller scale things like Godzilla Year One or minus one. Forget the exact name. I always get the year. I think Year One because of comic books, but that's not it.
Right.
So it's a good question. I can Gladiator's a good call, but I don't know if there's something in between
Right.
that because
Uh,
it's hard to get films like this in general, and then if they are successful, it's hard. We're probably gonna get another
to
one.
avoid
So
getting the yeah.
yeah,
We're gonna get the Odyssey too. No, just kidding.
but
I was also curious, like I don't want to get into the nonsense around this and 100%, but I am curious, like, what's your take on adapt like adaptations? Like, how much
my
leeway do you give somebody who's adapting a fictional thing?
I no matter what you're adapting, my thought is unless you're trying to like do a documentary or you're trying to say you're being accurate, just be good. I don't you can change whatever. Like I that's always been my personal opinion. It's like you can change, adjust, do whatever you want. As long as it's good, I don't care. That's always been my opinion because I feel like people care about source material only when they care about source material. I
Yep.
guarantee you, there's movies that you love, like everyone loves certain movies, and there's maybe like no one complains about Die Hard not being like the book it's based upon or it gets its story from. But people like Jurassic Park. We both love Jurassic Park. It changes a
Right.
lot about the original film, the book. So my interpretation is just be good. I don't care what you change or adjust, as long as you're not trying to bill yourself as an accurate adaptation, or like I mentioned, be like a documentary that is trying to be
Yeah.
telling the real story. Then I don't really
Yeah,
care.
it's not
How about
the
yours?
newsflash. It's not based on a real story, like a real event. Like
No,
it's
no, no. Yeah, I'm just saying when like if it was like an
yeah, yeah,
actual documentary,
right.
once you say based on a even though based on a true story, like I know it's not a true story. I don't. It's fine if they
Right.
change whatever, but as long as they don't then go like, hey, this is what really happened, or whatever. But I don't care. How about your software? I know. We mentioned our experience with it. Did you care about any adjustments or changes, or how do you like, when it comes to source material? You really care about like what's your thought process?
Like, especially when you're adapting a fictional thing, like it's not like you're the historian and like the history major in me does at times have a little bit of hesitation when you're going to tell a story that is based on or is a depiction of a real event that is then going to be understood as the real event
Hmm.
in a way. Like, I don't know, like think of
People
the
think the Patriots is a real story. It's like, no,
well,
it's
like
not. Huh?
the animated Pocahontas. Like
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
if we do it that way and then everybody just actually thinks that that's real and that's how things happened, like I think there is some like internal pushback I have a little bit with that. Like let's not trick people into thinking something is real that's not. But like
Yeah.
especially when it comes to a fictional story or a universe, like it's like I don't care. Like you do what you want to do to make it work for whatever, whether it's making it work for a modern audience, whether it's just um directionally like making it tell a theme or make a point that you're trying to make. Like I think all of that stuff is like totally fair game and do what you will for it. Like what was the like all of the critiques of like what was it, The Little Mermaid or
There's been a
whatever
lot of them.
Disney character that was like, hey, this is the wrong hair color or this is the wrong race,
It
and
was
it's like
it was yeah. I mean that was with
the
Little
one where like
Mermaid.
the original story, like the things like the character's green, like or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's like
Or like mermaids don't actually exist.
right.
That
It's like that we're getting so stuck up on it's not faithful to the version that we grew up with when that's not even
yeah
faithful to the original. Like, what are we doing here? Like that
yeah.
type of stuff drives me bananas. I will say I have at times had some internal like just personal preference when the change seems like a change for change's sake.
Yeah.
Like versus like there's a reason based on the story or the character or the development of something. And it was like, oh, I mean, I don't know why we did that, but like it's fine that you did it. It's fictional, like do whatever you want. But sometimes there is like I would like to understand
Hmm.
why, but like it's not something that would like make or break the film for me. And it's just that's just simple, like, I don't know, like changing
Yeah.
the backstory of a character that I've already known from another adaptation, and it's like, okay, did we just do it to do it, or it's because it like helped tell another story? Like,
No, I get that. Like in the sense of this is being a comic book fan. I
mhm,
don't mind if you change it, but just understand then what that means when you change it. Like
right,
there, I think this is completely off topic, but Zack Snyder, for example, he loves to take his characters and put them in other people's stories in the sense of like he'll change elements of characters like Batman and Superman,
mhm,
but then try to then take his versions and force them into stories where they don't fit because he's just taking the story of a Frank Miller or someone else and not fully understanding when you change this element of the character, then what does that actually do? And
right,
so that's where I do have an issue with like when you don't understand the changes that you're making,
right,
like you said, change for change sake. That's where I ultimately say if you're going to change it, just make it good. That's
right.
my
And there's a
defining
difference
element.
between changing somebody's like backstory or a pivotal point to their character development and changing somebody's hair color.
Yeah,
Like they're
yeah.
two different things. So
So
I,
Yeah. I did have a question for you.
okay.
You mentioned like you brought up a good point about when's the last time this happened, and then the kind of flip side of this, thinking of could it ever happen again? And I heard going into this, a lot of people were, only Christopher Nolan could make a movie like this, and probably as of right now, that's probably the case. But say 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whatever, do you think there are any directors on their way of being able to not make the Odyssey, but like to do their version of this? Someone who maybe will be like, oh, this is this director, and only they can make a movie like this because of their proven success. Do you think we'll basically get ever see a director with the power of a Christopher Nolan again, or anyone currently going today that you think is on that trajectory in any way?
I don't
I know that's a
think.
big question to ask.
I guess he's not. He's older than Christopher Nolan, so I don't think I can go there. I was gonna say like I have 100% faith in Matt Reeves of handling
Yeah.
something of this, like he did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, he did War for the Planet of the Apes. I feel like his work with the Batman, was uh high quality. Like I could see him handling stuff like that, but he's older than Christopher Nolan is. So I guess like that's not somebody that
Yeah.
like I can project, forward 15, 20 years. But man, I don't know if I have someone like on like a specific director in mind. Do I
Hmm.
think that it can happen? I think the more that we develop the skills to do not 100, like we got to this point where it was like, hey, we have CG and I agree with you, all CG isn't bad, but there was a point where we have the CG technology and now we can do things that we've never been able to do before. Like we can tell stories that we've been afraid to tell before because we knew it was going to look like booty, right? And I think there is a point there as technology continues to expand and develop and stuff like that, that we still have other things where it's like, yes, we could do it before because we had CG, but now we have even something greater than that. Whether it's better than
Hmm.
CG, whether it's a mix of practical things, whether we develop other skills, like I feel like that's always going to continue to evolve. So I think it opens doors for telling stories that may have not been told before because of fear or because of capabilities or whatever the case might be. I don't know what that story is. I don't It doesn't even have to be necessarily based on a story that already exists. It could be, something
Hmm.
completely, new and not tied to anything. But so I think that we could definitely see that. I don't think it's going to be something where we see something like that, every year or every couple years. Like, is it going to be 25 years between? That's how long it's been from Gladiator to the Odyssey. Is it going to be 2050 before we see something like that? I don't think it'll take that long. I I think it can happen more frequently, maybe than we might think at first, but I don't know. I'm hoping that the combination of technology and practical effects will continue to evolve to the point where people can take on stuff that feels like this in the future, maybe more frequently than that we have seen in the past.
A great answer. I think that you do bring up a lot of good points. I did have some people that I think
Okay.
that come to mind. So let me run them by you and see what you think. So the first person that came to mind, who I think has almost a similar trajectory as Ryan Coogler, or I said the name already, as Christopher Nolan, because Ryan Coogler,
Yeah.
like with Nolan, who had his first film being Following. That was kind of a small independent film. That was Ryan Coogler with Fruitvale Station, which was, I guess, a
Yeah.
little bit bigger, but it was more of a personal story. Then he gets into the franchises with Black Panther, similar to Nolan with the Batman movies. Then he has his like big standout hit with Sinners, and you could say that maybe with Nolan and whatever, maybe Prestige or whatever film you want to say. So I do, and he has also done some things with the industry, like his working to get the rights of Sinners back after so long and things like that. So I think Ryan Coogler is one that comes to mind as someone that he's on. He's not maybe there yet, but potentially could be. So that was one that came to mind.
I think
Um,
that's a great answer.
Another one too, and she has another movie coming out, I guess next year because it got pushed back. Would be Greta Gerwig, of course, the Nolan's correspondent with Barbie Heimer. Obviously, Barbie was super successful. I don't know how like, Lady Bird and Little Women, they weren't like gigantic, so it may be too much. but we know she's doing the Narnia films, and like Netflix
Mhm.
is even putting those in theaters now, like actually doing a theater push. So I'm guessing they have faith in those. So if those are proved to be successful, and she already has $1 billion movie in her back pocket, which is something not a lot of people could say. So I feel like she's on the potential there. I thought maybe a Denis Villeneuve, but he's actually, like you
Yeah,
said, with
same age.
he's younger, he's older than Nolan, so that doesn't work.
And he's
Um,
kind of doing it with Dune, right? Like he's kind of
yeah,
already there. Like,
yeah.
what about Joseph Kosinski?
What has he done?
Top Gun Maverick,
I
and I know a lot of people didn't like F1, but I'm saying like that's kind of more earlier stuff. But I could see like maybe going off of
I mean,
Top Gun
F1 was
Maverick.
super. What F1
Yeah,
was did, like, it wasn't huge domestically, but no, worldwide.
right.
So I think the question would be like, can he do something that is you
Yeah.
know like his own? Another one too. This is probably really early, because he's only done, I think, 2 films at this point, really. But he's got another one coming out this year. Is Zach Kreger he's done
Oh yeah.
Barbarian and Weapons. Of course, those are horror films, but again, those were Weapons was like one of the biggest movies last summer. Barbarian was successful, but not huge. But he's doing the Resident Evil movie coming out later this year, so that proves to be successful. So that was someone who I thought about as well. And then we have Lord and Miller, who did a Lego. They've been attached to a bunch. I don't know their ages though. I looked those up, but so those are just some of the people that kind of came to my mind of potentially as maybe they have both the financial success with their films as well as the critical. Like someone like Ari Aster, for example. Like I know people like he's a name people know, but I don't think he's ever
Mhm.
been like has the blockbuster behind them. But I don't know. Those are some people that seemed
Interesting.
like maybe like if they keep going the way they're going, like if I know Ryan Coogler's been announced for the next Black Panther film, but maybe if he does another standout hit, like outside, like another, not another like Sinners 2, but another movie that is original. And
Mhm.
I think so. I do think there are a lot of individuals, and there's something new. Obviously we have Obsession and Backrooms with those directors but that's only, I was trying to think of people that had at least multiple films that have been successful. So
What
those are the
about
ones that.
what about Brady Corbett? He did The Brutalist. I know that's a
Okay.
completely different style, right?
Yeah.
But it's a um it covers a lot of time period. It's kind of got a spanning like
Yeah.
storytelling way. Like if he really like took an epic and like grabbed onto it. Like I haven't seen Vox Lux or I think he had another film before that, but
Yeah. And the
he's
something,
young.
I think he has the talent. I still haven't seen The Brutalist, but I know it was
Gotcha.
heavily. He clearly may have the talent. I think the only thing would be, would he ever get to the point where the people would be trusting to give him
Yeah, that's true.
that amount of money? Because I
That's
think
an interesting
that's
question.
so. I was just thinking that like some directors that like have
I
the
also
potential.
apparently didn't realize what age any of these directors that I really like are.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize how old Dennis. Not he's not old, but like
All
like
right,
Dennis Villeneuve. Like were I was like, oh wow,
man.
he's a little older than I expect. I thought he'd be a little, but because forget like, oh
Cougar's
yeah,
like
he's
the
been
only one
making.
younger than me. I'm like,
Yeah.
goodness gracious.
So but
um, yeah, that's one I'll have to like ponder a little bit because I think that's definitely an interesting question as we're talking about like when and if there would be another epic like who's gonna make it like
yeah,
that's
I've had to bet money on anyone right now would be Ryan Coogler, because he's, like I
yeah
said, he's everything he's done has been successful. He's already won Oscars, not, or his movies have won Oscars, not him, but
right.
and then like, and the big thing, like he showed that he has the ability to negotiate on more of so that's I think a big part of it too. So
So
I don't know. It's
yep,
we'll
5 years
find
from
out.
now, Ryan
Yeah.
Coogler's directorial
Do the
venture with
Iliad,
the Iliad. Yep,
Yeah.
that's what's coming. Then somebody can do. No, they already tried to do Beowulf a while back, and
Oh
that
my
didn't work
god.
out so well.
We
So
should do that. I don't know if I've ever saw that. It was an animated one, right?
I don't know. I just know that that was not a story that I was intrigued based on my high school time to go back and
Oh,
revisit.
that was a tough. We didn't read that entire thing. We read like a page
That
of
was
it. And like,
awful.
this is, I'm
It was a
oh
slog.
man. Yeah.
So
So
obviously this one's doing well. I think its budget was a whopping. It was a lot of money, 250 million, but it's going to make $1 billion, I think, worldwide. So I think it's going to
yeah.
do all right here for the Odyssey, and I want to say it's uh, pretty well received. I haven't looked at any type of like um,
Yeah.
scores that people put.
I think right now, if you're doing Oscar odds, it's probably. I mean, it's obviously going to be nominated and probably be we're still obviously we didn't hit technically Oscar season, which is like the fall, but
Yeah,
it's gonna be a contender for sure. And it was, I mean, like you mentioned, there's a lot of noise around it. I'm sure maybe that might impact it. Also, this made me realize why I love watching things that aren't popular, because my news feed was like
yeah.
jam packed with some of the worst takes in the history of the world when it came to like this. I'm like, how do people do this? Like, it's so much better watching things no one cares about because you don't have to deal with like
I
just
used it. I used it as a barometer on certain social media platforms that I'm on of like, how can I really quickly identify people that are of the far right MAGA movement, and
yeah.
like it was very easy to point those out and
Oh
just
my
block them from my feed.
yeah,
So
it was crazy. People even but even beyond that too, just like there you have that like those crazy people because like people freaking out because Lupita Nyong'o was cast, and then others, not like I'm saying you have to love this movie or they're not criticisms, like, but some of them were like, I mentioned like the modern English people. I'm like, do you not? It's clearly a choice there. Like, do people not
like
understand?
they used the wrong type of metal on the ship, Dan.
Oh,
That is a
one
deal
more
breaker
about the
for me.
helmets or the. I'm like, I'm go crazy, man. And then they would be like, it's why can't it be like Troy? What like that's what did when did Troy become historically accurate? Like that's
Right?
it's just it's the Trojan horse didn't look as good as it did in Troy. Like where were all you people when I was watching that movie loving it and like no one
Right?
else did? Like
That's
where
what
were
I'm
you
saying. And
20
now
20
I
years
feel
ago?
like I can't love it because you've tainted it with your
Yeah,
nonsense.
but anyways, I think
So
we
it's fun.
talked to
Yeah,
yeah,
I think we covered everything. Like it was fun to talk about a new, film from
I
2026. We've got to
know.
do that a few times. We might be able to do that a few more times here throughout the rest of the year. But
Yeah.
we also have our other series that are going on. So, if you haven't had a chance to see a lot of movies in the theater, don't worry. We got your old streaming content covered. We're covering all of the Western films that you could possibly like think of. We've been covering things like The Naked Spur and Johnny Guitar. We have some classics coming up with like the Red River and Shane and what High Noon I think is coming soon. So if you like
Yeah, Rio
westerns,
Bravo.
like
Yeah.
yeah,
So
we got you like everything you could possibly listen to there. And then we're also doing some more science fiction fun for more of the geek side of our predisposition, I guess, with our Planet of the Apes series. So you can watch us as we go through all of them, not just the modern ones. No, we're going back through all of the originals. Uh, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'll say of that, and you'll have to kind of like tune in to see which ones
this
are which.
fits well, right? Because we did that movie too just earlier this year.
Right.
But
So there's lots of stuff to listen to as we kind of make our way through this, and you can always keep track of us on Letterbox, and you can go back and see like which one, or our Facebook, and you can see if Dan or myself is in a better shape for the box office draft, and kind of how that's going.
not me. So
Spoiler alert, it's not over, Dan.
uh,
And you can check out, what that is looking like. As I think we each have 3 films or 4 films that are yet to be released. So
yeah,
there's
I still have my number
still some
one
time.
pick.
Yep.
Yeah, so my number one pick with Doomsday, and I got
I'm hoping
and
my sneaky like 7th pick of Dune can like bring it home
I
for me.
still
But
like I regret that. I got the new Hunger Games movie. Everyone go see
that
that,
could,
and
yes.
Clayface,
Yep.
which I know. And then Cat in the Hat is gonna it's gonna blow down the box. People don't
Bring you
realize
across
that's
the
gonna
finish line.
it's gonna make $1 billion.
Dan, I
So
think you did curse the Minions movie though, by the way.
oh my god,
That no Minions film has ever made less than like whatever 400 million. And I know you've never been a fan of the franchise. You draft one of the Minions movies,
and I see it in theaters too.
and
I
you
do
see
my
it,
part. I
and it
do
gets
my
good reviews, and it
yeah.
gets good reviews. No money to be made. I don't
It's crazy.
understand the world.
I
It
don't.
is a weird year for the box office. That is for
Yeah,
dang
like
sure. It
and
is
then
all or
same thing
nothing.
with I cursed Moana, but I'm actually okay with that. I mean, I will take one for the team if
You're probably
that
okay
can.
with both of those now. Like you're fine Both of those not doing well.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
like I hate saying it, but I did like it. It was pretty good. Like,
yeah,
my kids loved it, but like
I
I've,
got.
I've se-
I have this. I somehow ended up with the sneakiest pick on the planet. Somehow with Spider-Man as my third draft pick. Like,
I remember going back to, I think if I remember saying like I didn't think it's gonna do well this year. I don't know. And then that yeah,
I
I
thought we
wasn't
were
that,
doing well. Like we have all these. We it's a decent year at the box office. Like there's a bunch of films that have made over 300 million. Like you've drafted. You had at least two of them with Michael and Odyssey. I had Project Hail Mary and Toy Story and Mario. Like they've all been doing phenomenal. And then here comes Spider-Man, and in one weekend beats almost all of them. Like
yeah.
what? What world are we living in?
I was legit, I don't know, I thought maybe because like the other Spider-Mans that weren't No Way Home did
Right.
okay, and I thought the MCU was dead. That's what people said, but
I thought comic
Spider
book movies were like in for like nothing seemed like it was making money, and Supergirl tanked, and like everything else was tanking, and then Spider-Man said,
yeah,
"Remember me?"
I know
You know?
it's interesting. I don't know. So I don't know what that means for Doomsday, if that's a good sign for Doomsday or not. We'll see. Because it
Yeah,
didn't really I don't know. We'll see. I mean,
I
I'm
do
intrigued.
think it means that regardless of what other kind of superhero fatigue people have, and whatever happens to the DC and the Marvel universe, I think we can be assured that no matter what happens with all of them, Spider-Man will continue to live on.
Yeah,
Like
we'll
we're
get
gonna
more
get more
Spider.
Spider-Man.
Sure.
So it was always
All
my
this.
favorite as a kid, so I'm fine with that.
I mean, yeah, I, I,
I know
I,
everybody's like Batman and Superman fans. I was always kind of more of a. I didn't read comics. I didn't watch a lot of superhero stuff, but I remember having a Spider-Man coloring book, and I thought he was cool.
can't deny that. Yeah.
All right, so you can search out Dan at the Comic Concierge. You can search out our Facebook page. What is it, Dan?
Comic Concierge movie podcast. If you search that, you'll be able to find it.
And the Cinema Geek podcast is probably
Oh yeah, sorry.
the Comic Concierge movie podcast would be an
Yeah,
interesting
that would be
venture.
weird. I am combining everything. Yeah, Cinema Geek podcast. It's on Facebook. I got to start posting more. But you can catch us on there. So
Yeah, for sure. Check us out on Letterboxd. You can check out the website. I'm going to say it the wrong way though because they just changed it. It's thegcrn.com. So it is no longer geekcastradio.com. It's thegcrn.com. So you can check that out, and all of our stuff will be posted there, as well as any articles that Dan and I write usually get posted there as well. So you can check out all of that content. So that does it for this episode. Tune in next time for another chance to listen to more of the Cinema Geeks.